Welcome to the
Oh
first
yeah.
Monday of the month of March. How did we get here so quickly? Hey, before we start, one of the steps I'd like for all of you to consider is review what happened in February. And here's a laundry list of the numbers you should keep track of. And the reason you need to do this is, well, to recognize challenges you might be dealing with. So maybe on a sheet of paper or your binder, maybe on your computer, write this down. Level one and slash the number of leads you've generated. Level two slash the number of leads that turned into appointments. Level three slash shows and goes, the number of new enrollments you've secured. Level four, upgrades. How many students changed the status of their membership? And level five, how many students added on a family member to their program? So as you go down that list, what you'll see is the result of your efforts. And if you didn't accomplish what you set out to do, well, we have to look for the leaks. Typically, the first leak people run into is that, well, we had somebody respond to our lead. They opted into our website, but we couldn't get them to come in. Now, if that's the case, and here's how you can measure whether or not that's a problem, you should be able to convert about 25% of your leads into appointments that show. So, for example, if I had 100 leads, I should be able to generate at least 25 appointments that may show. Now, if that 25% isn't happening, well, maybe we need to look more closely how you react, how you respond to these leads that opt in. Time is of the essence. We found is that if you can reach out to your lead within 5-10 minutes of them opting in, it increases your likelihood of connecting by 90%. However, that's not always the case because we don't call people after 8 p.m. and we don't call them before 8 a.m. So that being the situation, if they opt in during off hours, it's got to be a top priority as soon as you get to work after 8 a.m. Now, a lot of folks think 8 a.m. is too early to call. Well, get that call out of the way and leave an enthusiastic message to encourage them to call you back. But as you look at your numbers, you can typically uncover the gaps between one level of business to the next. So before we move any further, any questions or comments about that? Think about tracking your numbers as your scorecard, and the numbers never lie. All right, well, let's go ahead and open up the call for questions and concerns. Roman, do we have anyone send you a question?
No,
There's
not yet. Nothing in the chat right now.
Okay, well, here's a question. Hey, what's all this excitement about attendance-based ranked certification? Well, I'll share it with you. One of the things we got to consider is some of the systems and processes we use, we think need to be in place forever and ever. And one of those is your certification, your testing, how your students change rank. What we've uncovered is this: we lose most of our students because of testing. One of the things we got to keep in mind is, are we training as a color belt student? What are you training them for? Are we training them to become the ultimate killer at the green belt level? Or are we training them to get prepared for something bigger in the future, i.e. test for their black belt? One of the things we figured out was if you re-engineer how your students change rank, you can keep people longer. Not only can you keep people longer, you'll get more people involved in a membership that may have thought they couldn't do it. Testing, the traditional way of allowing a student progress from one rank to the next, has typically been day and date, where each of us embrace a testing cycle where over the course of several weeks, whether it's 10 weeks, 12 weeks, 16, 18, makes no difference to me. We take a student through a protocol where we teach them the material for their said rank. And by the end of this time, they have to accomplish a certain level of proficiency in order to move on. Well, that idea of having the perfect color belt is a great idea. However, it's virtually unscalable, which means you can't help a larger number of people. I want everyone to realize this. When you first hear it, everybody pushes back, but here we go. Testing holds people back that would really enjoy and gain from your membership. And that one group of people I think it holds back the most are your parents. It's the way the business works. Typically more than half your students, maybe in the neighborhood of 70, 80%, will be children. That adult market is hard to break into. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But the main reason is most adults think they can't do martial arts. They think they have to be in shape first. They think they have to have brilliant memory. They think they have to be athletically inclined to even start a membership. And I think that's the case for a lot of people because of how we traditionally test, where you got to take somebody through a regimen to make certain that they're ready for the next belt color. Well, we extinguished that a few years back, and what we put in play was we rewarded what we want repeated, and that is class attendance. So, based on students showing for class and giving their best, they're awarded a class credit. Based on a certain number of class credits, they're awarded a stripe in their belt. After they hit a certain number of classes, they're awarded their new rank in class. This has been a game changer for three reasons. Number one, it allows you to keep most people moving forward in the program. Think about this for a moment. If somebody misses a test, typically you have to jump through a fiery hoop to do a makeup for them, or they leave. All your students who ever quit have this in common. They didn't take their last testing. Second, I think traditional testing is an enormous distraction from your day in, day out business. Typically we start focusing on testing numbers 2, 3 weeks out before the testing date. Now, if you're focusing on getting people prepared for testing, making sure that they're dialed into their curriculum and they paid their fees, you're not paying attention to the bulk of our business, and that's new enrollments and upgrades. But the third thing is this: it's very difficult, if not impossible, to keep the entire studio moving forward. However, when you leverage a class attendance certification, your students can move at their own rate of speed. As a matter of fact, not only can they move at their own rate of speed, you can actually keep a family training together. One of the biggest challenges we have in our business about family classes is that we think each person has to be properly prepared to go through a regimen to change their belt color. But the problem is, if a parent has a 6-year-old, it's hard for them to keep the same pace. So we're not concerned about how talented a color belt is. We're concerned whether they're being challenged on the mat, whether they're being encouraged to do their best, whether they put in the time, get in the reps, because the goal of color belt ranking is to keep your student around long enough to one day test for the black belt. And what we figured out is that on average, it takes about 300 lessons to go from a beginner white belt to your first degree black belt. Well, our entire system is based on that strategy. And as a result, retention skyrockets. As a result, you get more parents involved in the mat. And as a result, your life gets a whole lot easier, and it becomes more simplistic to operate your business. So as we move forward in the ongoing training, we'll revisit this topic dozens of times. And if it looks like it's something you would like to embrace and you need a little help, we'll get on the phone with you and help you sort things out. But attendance-based rank certification is relatively new to this industry, or is it? I want you to realize that attendance-based rank progression has been around for a long while. It's been used by a minority of students, schools around the country, but originally started in judo. Judo used to, back in the 60s, used to base rank on classes and going to events like tournaments. Jiu-jitsu, I think for the most part, the average instructor bases it on progress, number of classes, and their level of readiness. They don't test the entire studio. They promote individually. So it's not so far off from not being used. But I think in family-based organizations, if you're not leveraging attendance-based certification, you're at a significant disadvantage. So any questions about that, or any comments, or who on this phone has embraced that idea and explained the impact it may have had for you?
Yeah, we have a question in here for the asking for a breakdown of recommended testing fees from MCMA.
Okay, when I hear breakdown testing fees, what I hear in my mind is, well, based on the rank, there should be a different certification fee. My recommendation is the flat fee across the board. Most of the students we help have 10 color belt ranks. The testing certification is $75 if they pay as they play. For example, if a student is halfway through the advancement regimen after they earn their second stripe um, towards the test, that's when they pay their certification fee. However, as you know from previous trainings, we do our best to accelerate the rate of payments. So we afford our students a discount if they decide to pay off their fees, making a monthly payment. We save them 10% of the overall cost of certification through color belts if they break it down into monthly installments. The cool thing about this is that you have a steady stream of additional revenue. In addition to that, the students know that they're investing in their future for rank, and they never overpay. And the third way is we afford our students as savings of as much as 20% if they prepay all of their certification fees up to the black belt. So my recommendation is 75 bucks. And I'll tell you where it came from. At the time we made this change, our basic program is 150 a month. And we decided, well, why don't we charge half?
One
And
sec.
that $75 has worked out really well. Hey, Master Serrano, it's good to see you, sir. Been many years.
Sure,
Good to see you. Welcome,
Hey,
welcome
sir.
aboard. All right, would you read the next question, Roman?
Let's see, from Kasama Filipino Martial Arts. Our system doesn't have belts. We have 4 levels that can be the equivalent of belts. Takes about 18 to 24 months. Do you have a suggestion on how we can leverage attendance-based certifications? Possibly a 45-day badge or stripe.
Sure, of course you could do that, but what's preventing you from actually using belts? I think belts do several things simultaneously. It gives the student something to strive towards. It acknowledges the effort and the hard work they put, and also structures a cadence in the entire program where more people stay a firm part of your membership. Plus, there's something else based on rank and the goals they've set. Well, it opens up a plethora of conversation you can have about changing their membership. In the absence of rank, what are you measuring? One of the reasons why people drop out of anything is they don't feel or they don't see, they're not experiencing any level of progress. A silly example is a diet. When do you quit the diet? Well, you stop dieting when you realize the scale's moving in the wrong direction. Well, I think people drop out of any program, particular programs designed to be progressive, if there isn't some level of measure. What matters needs to be measured. And the truth of the matter is we want to reward what we want repeated. And a surefire way of keeping your students longer is to award their attendance. So just take a step back, ask the big question. If a student were to train 2 times a week, how long would it take him to accomplish the rank of black belt in my system? And then do the math backwards as far as the breakdown. But don't hold people back by restricting how often they could come. You can increase their attendance while increasing their monthly tuition, which is another concept we've worked in. And that is basing your tuition on the number of times a student trains in class. So they're in complete control of their advancement. I think I answered that question.
and also if like we've worked with some guys that do different styles like Muay Thai, and they're like, well, we don't want to use belts. They're dead set against it. All right. Well, then what they ended up doing was adopting different color waistbands on their Muay Thai shorts, which produce the same thing. Or you could have different color gloves, or I'm a fan of full uniform, but if you're committed to t-shirts, it could be a different t-shirt that signifies their rank. But there needs to be a progression that can be recognized. And that way it makes it easy for them to embrace it. So they're always striving for that next goal.
I see the question from Ken. It reads, are you saying don't test, but reward their attendance, yet still charge for the advancement? And my answer is yes. Yes. And that's why we call it certification. We certify that the student has gone through a certain level of progress in order to have earned the next color belt. This idea that I can't charge a fee unless I put it on a big old fashioned dog and pony show where I break out the demonstrations and call the students up by age and rank and have them perform in front of a large audience. That's all well and good. But when you have 200-300 students, it's impossible to do that consistently. And here's the real rub. Traditional testing as you grow gets more difficult for your students to succeed. On average, a studio that has 200 active students will only test about 70% of their membership in each rotation. That means 30% of your student body is always at risk of discontinuing. All your students who ever quit have this in common. They did not promote to their next rank. And typically that didn't happen because they thought or you told them they weren't ready. Well, Fred, it sounds to me like you want to be a belt factory. What else do you want to be? I know if I can keep a student around for a couple of years and they train under our guidance for 300 lessons, they will have actualized their full potential. And that's the goal of martial arts. The goal of martial arts isn't to create killers. The goal of martial arts is to help people gain control of their lives, to actualize whatever potential they may have, to help them develop strength, overall fitness, coordination, cardiovascular endurance, flexibility. And the key to that is you got to show up for class. I can't tell you the number of times that I fell victim to this. Well, Mr. Mertens, I don't think my kid's ready. Well, Miss Lewis, don't you worry. 2 private lessons, we'll get him ready for testing. Come on. Why did I pull that smoke and mirrors? Or how about afterwards? Well, Tommy couldn't come. He had strep throat. or we had to skip testing because the family had a European vacation plan. Well, don't you worry, Mrs. Lewis. We'll set up a makeup testing. Why go through that fiery hoop for $75? It just simply does not make sense. Keep your eye on the prize, and that is having a larger number of your people dedicated to become one of your black belts and beyond by consistently showing up for your classes and training to the best of their ability. That's the key to success. So yes, I am saying that. Charge away. One of the things you got to keep in mind is that it's real simple to get people to recognize value, and that's to put a price tag on it. But there is one caveat about charging for certification, even though you're not testing, and that is you could provide a tuition level that could be all-inclusive, where they don't even worry about certification fees. I work for Master Clark in Jacksonville, and that's what we do in Florida, where there's a tuition level of $299 a month, and that includes your certification fees. Now, that does restrict them to come to class only 1 to 2 times per week, but it does give them the bonus of no certification fees. And the way your students will understand all this is by how you present the membership. And that's where dialogue and scripting comes in. For people to really dive into your membership and firmly commit, there does have to be a regimented enrollment process that allows people to understand from A to Z what they're getting involved in, what's expected, and of course, what other fees and considerations have to be met. Next question, fire away.
All right, we got one from Mr. Hackelman.
Oh, let's hear it.
Do you let members do makeups for attendance, and do you charge for that?
Oh, great question. Well, if you're allowing people to participate in your program based on a tuition rate that allows them to come to a certain number of times per week is just the gauge. But if you take a step back, it's actually per month, really. So 2 times a week is 8 times a month. If they do miss a class, they can simply show up for another one. So yes, they are able to make up classes and there's no penalty.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to elaborate on that a little bit. That was my question. So our people they only come 2 days a week. There's specific classes you can't come to any other class really.
I see.
Some of the adults can if they miss. So we do most of ours based on attendance, kind of like you do, just because there's too many people, you can't test them all.
Yes.
And there are so many people that can't do one thing, but someone else can. And we just base it on attendance and a lot of it on fitness.
Yes.
But so we do it every 3 months. They are allowed to miss 2 classes during that 3 months. They can miss it. They don't have to make up. They don't have to do anything. If they miss over 5, they automatically won't promote. But if they miss, say, 3 to 5, they can do makeups in order to get down to the 2 that they're allowed. So we do signups for the kids where they can do some free makeups or they can do some privates. Some of the adults we let jump into another class, but that's just kind of my question there. Should I charge for all of the makeups if they miss more than 2, or do you think that's something that they should be able to make up for free?
I'm going to answer your question with a real broad stroke. And here we go. You got to ask any procedure, any policy, anything you have in play, you got to ask this question. Does it encourage or discourage a student from full-on, full-out participation? And what you just described, based on what I heard from you, is that we are discouraging, not necessarily encouraging. Now, if you have a certain number of classes that are required, well, I wouldn't lock your regimen into every 3 months. Let them stay and play. One of the things too that we sometimes fail to realize that in order to keep people connected, your membership needs to see examples of how other students are succeeding. And the cool thing about awarding rank based on attendance is that every studio that uses this leverage in every single class, somebody's being awarded something at the end of that lesson. Whether it's a stripe on their belt for class number 10, or perhaps it's a new belt rank because they satisfied the requirement of 30 lessons. So one of the things I would suggest is become just maybe a little bit more flexible. Well, Fred, again, you sound like a belt factory. Well, what else do you want me to be? I know this. More people have quit than stayed, and that is true for everyone on this call. So to keep people longer, you got to, again, ask the question, my policy, my procedure, what I use, does it encourage or on occasion does it discourage? Because again, the way we look at it is that we want martial arts, a program, to complement a student and their family's lives. And the more complicated it becomes, the less likely a student will survive the test of time and accomplish what you have in mind for them. So maybe a little flexibility is in order. So rather than saying, okay, you have to have a certain number of classes by this deadline, how about this? You have to have a certain number of classes. Remove the deadline. And I know it goes against the grain of what you've established in your academy, but you got to ask the question, am I where I thought I'd be by now in my business? And if the answer is, well, not really, then sometimes you got to manipulate how you're doing things to keep people longer. The scourge of this business is how fast people quit. And in many cases, they quit not because we're lousy instructors, but because maybe we've implemented a procedure that makes it kind of difficult for people to fully participate. So maybe give that some consideration. Because
What do
to
you
try
mean
to
by get rid of the deadline?
well, what I heard from you, now correct me if I'm mistaken, is that you do this every 3 months. Every 3 months, based on the number of classes you've attended, you either move forward with rank or not. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
again,
I think, yeah, what we're, because then people get pissed off if they don't.
yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
So
yeah.
often.
Hey,
So I think we're trying to give them like a little out, but they know if they miss more than 5, that's it, you're done.
How many,
Of course,
how many classes do they have to attend?
there's 2 classes a week, so 24 in the 3 months. And then
So,
they have to attend 22.
okay.
Okay.
So one of the things that we did some 10 years ago is we said, okay, well, rather than having this restrictor, this bottleneck that it literally impedes business, because sometimes life gets in the way.
Yeah.
What if they're sick for a week, they go on vacation for a week, and they have to be in a wedding out of town, and they're gone for a week? Now they're screwed. I might as well quit. I'm not going to make any progress. And so what we did was we changed it. We said, okay, well, like in your example, when you get 24 lessons completed, you will be promoted to the next rank. The timeline is irrelevant. So for the first time ever, we're telling the truth when we say every single student progresses at their own pace because it's based on their ability to attend class and train. And since we control the lesson plans and I don't have to give them class credit if they're not doing their best, you have restrictors you can put in place, but that overarching deal of, oh, you got to be ready by this day and date, or you wait another 3 months, which is the surefire way to get people to quit. We just took that roadblock out. We just
So
removed
you don't do like a big belt ceremony. You guys just
we haven't
belt
done
like
it in a
class?
decade. That's correct. Now we used to.
Oh,
They were huge. North,
that's
we
how
have
we
over
are.
100 people show up. It was
Yeah.
we put on a spectacle. And I thought, like many school, oh, well, my people love that. Well, so did mine until we told them they didn't have to do it anymore. Then they loved it even more. It was really appreciate that, Master Serrano. Thank you. It's like, you mean I don't have to come down here and watch all these other kids I don't even know or care about? That's right. Oh, this is great. And the truth is, they want to be rewarded and recognized in front of their peers, and that's their classmates. There's not a class that goes by that we are not awarding stripes and belts at the end of the lesson, in which somebody posted a question at the end of the 30 days, do we give that day or the next class? Well, if you require 30 lessons to progress, today's your 30th lesson. At the end of this lesson, we will award the new belt. At the end of how many stripes they need, how many classes to get a stripe, we will award the stripe. Every single class that we hold ends with a celebration because somebody's getting something, but it's even better. We'll say, okay, if you look at your attendance card, I can say, hey, Bobby, Timmy, Susie, Jimmy, stand up. They all stand up. Yes, sir. These 4 folks will be earning their next stripe or their next belt, their very next lesson. Let's give them a hand. Woo! Retention is up because they have something to look forward to. There's something that they're working towards, and it's right in front of their face. We took that 30-day or that 12-week carrot and pulled it up right there where they can see it. And it's much less frequent. They go, Mom, I don't want to go to class. I don't want to. Well, no, don't you remember? Master Ross said that today's the day you're going to get your next belt. Ooh, oh yeah, let's go.
Master Bishke, maybe I can share 9 specific advantages to attendance-based rank certification. You think that would be helpful?
Yes, sir.
Everybody take notes on this. So number 1 is this. the advantage of attendance-based rank certification, number one, is it allows your student to progress at their rate of speed. Now, we've been saying that for years, but their rate of speed based on our schedule. And I think that's one of the reasons why our dropout rate is so high. Second, this advancement method allows families, mom, dad, and the kids to train, progress, and accomplish rank together. One of the reasons why a lot of us have never created a family membership is that we put in too many stipulations based on age and rank and memorization. If you remove that, we can help mom, dad, and the kids stay with you for years. And that's the goal. If you can keep a student with you for 3 years, 300 classes, everything changes for the better. The third advantage, you ready? Here it comes. Eliminates the effort and coordination required for day and date certification. This whole getting ready for testing is an enormous distraction of your business. And when people miss testing, your effort to make up for that further distracts you from your business. Number 4, there's no need for makeup certification events. Well, that addresses that. Number 5, memorization of material is not required for the color belts. See, the reason, what Master Clark has taught me, the reason for your color belt system is to prepare your students for their their black belt test. Number next, students may be awarded stripes and new belts in every class, as Master Pesky just mentioned, creating the social proof that you're really good at what you do. From the consumer's mind's eye, what determines how successful you are is how successful your students are. Are they revved up? Are they enthusiastic? Are they giving their best effort? Are they showing up for class? That's the key. That's the key to firm engagement. Number next, all students must meet the required number of classes or hours in order to rank advance. No exceptions. How many times have we allowed somebody to test because they had natural athleticism, not because they put in the time, effort, and energy in the class? I know I did it for years. Number next, students can set and achieve the goal of black belt rank on their terms based on the frequency of attendance. See, this is something that's rather unique. And I tell you, you give it another year, most studios will be following this example. One of the things you got to keep in mind is this: in order to keep your students revved up, there has to be this heightened sense of anticipation, what I have to look forward to. And looking forward to the next rank is a surefire way of keeping people more involved. But what if I manipulated my membership where if you wanted to earn rank faster, you would have to upgrade your membership? For example, to come to class 1 to 2 times a week, we have a tuition rate in Jacksonville at $249. To come to 3 to 4 times a week, we have a tuition rate of $299. If you want to come more than 4 times a week, your tuition is $349, and we have dozens of people. Then we have the unrestricted level, the gym rat, the guy that wants to be here every day. To show up each day, every day, there's a tuition rate of $399. And if a student did take 4 or 5 classes a week, they could earn their black belt rank within 16 to 18 months. Oh, but Fred, it sounds like you're giving ranks away. Hey, you train somebody for 300 classes, we'll train somebody for 300 classes. And by the end of it, regardless of how long it took, I think you'll see that the students look pretty much the same. And lastly, there's always an opportunity to modify your students' goal and help them save money on membership, certification, and merchandise. For example, most people think that they'll generate more cash if they offer a discount. No, you can generate more cash if you help a student set a destination. Discounting is okay. Helping a student understand where they're going is better. So you can sit down with each and every student and have a conversation about their goals, their ambition, based on their current training regimen, what they can expect in the next 18, 24, 36 months. And you can help them realize that they could change that simply by changing their level of commitment through membership, or if they want to train more frequently, they could. Hey, I was the guy that stayed there till the very end, hoping that I'd be invited to run the vacuum at night. I mean, I bet some of you fell that same category. Yet I progressed like everybody else. The student who's most enthusiastic should be most handsomely rewarded if they're paying the right tuition rate. So by allowing people to progress based on attendance, it not only dissolves a lot of the challenges you've been dealing with since the dawn of time, it heightens your opportunity to change the status of membership, change the tone of conversation, and change them in the mind's eye of your parents what you have lined up for your students. Did that help? I'll take that as a yes.
I have a question, sir.
Fire away.
On my previous question, I didn't verb it right. So we're having it, not an issue, but we might have an issue. At the 30th class, we give the stripe out and the belt, or do we wait after for the next class? Like they get their 30,
Okay, great.
30
Now,
and they get the stripe.
okay, here's what we do. We not only keep a digital track of attendance, we also use hard copy cards where they pull the cards.
We do too.
When the students hand in the cards, we use what we call a rank station. The instructor segregates the cards based on number of classes so they know who they have to take care of at the end of class. But we make certain that the rank awards, whether it's a stripe or a belt, are awarded in the class prior to bowing out. Otherwise, you lose the impact. I mean, I'm not going to toss a kid his yellow belt on the way out, as he's walking through the lobby. I want him to be proud. I want him to stand tall. I want him to feel the reward of hard work.
No,
So
I think I did you get that?
how do they earn how do they earn that last stripe? How
Can
do
I
they
answer
earn
that quickly, sir?
The 30
They get their stripes on the 9th, 18th, and 9th, 18th, and 27th class. They get their belts on the 28th, 29th, or 30th class. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's Master Clark's regiment. All right, so however you choose, well, first of all, how many classes does a student have to train in to be qualified to test for black belt? That's a real question for you, sir.
for mine?
Yes.
150 classes. Once they get the red belt, I believe they'll have
Okay.
150.
All right, so answer
It's
the
30
question. How
It's
many
30
classes? Black belt?
it's 30 classes every belt until you get the black belt.
Okay, so the number is? If
I
you can't explain
I
it,
haven't done the
your
I haven't done the
students
math.
can't let me finish. If you can't explain it, your students don't understand it. And it's the misappreciation for what you have in mind as students that causes your dropout rate. So pick a number. Our number is 300. The way we look at it is this. If I can get a student to come to class twice a week, 50 weeks out of a 52-week year, by year 3, they've accomplished 300 lessons and they will have arrived. However, that 300 classes doesn't have to happen over 3 years. It could happen in 2 years. It could happen in 18 months. Heck, some of the pioneers of the martial art industry all earned their black belt while they were serving our country for 9 months, 12 months, 14 months in Asia. Heck, my instructor was awarded his first degree in less than a year. I mean, some of the most notable pioneers of our industry, went to Korea for 14 months and came back as a black belt. So just make an adjustment. But here's what I want you to realize. Black belt is the beginning, not the end. The key to retention isn't to set the finish line at black belt. The key to retention is beyond black belt. And as a student progresses through the rank, change their goal. Change their goal from black belt to 3rd degree. Change their goal from 1st degree to 5th degree. If you don't change a goal, you're not enhancing their vision as far as what they can accomplish in this program. Second of which, how many times have you heard that a person couldn't sign up because they're not going to be here for that length of time? Well, you can adjust that by how frequently they take class. But to go back to your question, ranks are awarded in class based on the understanding that we have that it takes 300 lessons to be qualified for your black belt testing. At 300 lessons, now you can test. There is a physical test. There is a physical challenge to be awarded the rank of black belt. That each additional rank, you guessed it, there's another 300 classes required. So it's just a different way of looking at it. And as a result of that, if you were to visit Jacksonville, and we've had a few guests on the call that have been there, you'll be stunned by the number of 3rd, 4th, and 5th degrees that Grandmaster Clark has. That's not by accident, it's by design. If your goal is black belt, the closer you get to black belt, the more likely you'll discontinue. But if your goal is 4th degree, well, you're going to make it through 1st degree. It's just a different mindset altogether. Did that help, sir?
Kind of. Maybe I'm not asking it right. So let's say I'm the student. It's my 30th class.
And it takes
So-
30 classes to accomplish what?
Your next belt.
Okay. So at
Yeah.
the end of the 30th class, we award the belt.
But they also at the 30 every 10 days they get a stripe. So that's where I'm having a Like,
Every 10 days or every 10 classes?
sorry, every 10 classes they get a stripe.
So you
So the
award on class 30, you would give them a stripe and a belt?
That's what I'm asking.
No, you just give them a new belt.
Yeah, just give them the belt.
Oh,
Just give them a
okay.
belt. Just
All
give 'em a
right.
belt.
That makes it simple. Okay.
There you go.
Okay,
That's
Matt
easy.
from Toronto
So
said,
you do stripe, belt.
Gotcha.
okay, all right. When you promote in class like that, how do you manage the testing fees, or do you have fees? Yes, we do have fees, and here's how we do it. Upon enrollment to our entry-level membership, we explain that any internationally recognized martial art program, their ranks are recognized because they've been certified by a grandmaster. So we explain that. And with every certification, there are fees involved. Our certification fees are $75 per rank. When your student is halfway to his first belt rank, we'll sit down, review the certification fees, and figure out how you'll take care of them. So on class 20, we sit down with the family and we review our regimen for certification fees, and they agree to do one of three things. We actually have a form they fill out, like a little agreement. They can either pay in full, saving 20% on all the ranks to black belt. They can save 10% by doing monthly installments. In Sacramento, it's $32.50. In Florida, it's $35. Or they can pay as they play. So when a student earns their second stripe, we don't need to speak about it. We have an agreement where we run the credit card on file to satisfy the fee. We talk about certification once. Meanwhile, the rest of the country is chasing people. You're spending more time chasing than you are testing. So have that adult conversation about earning a rank that's internationally recognized, that's certified by a grandmaster. And yes, there is a fee. Now, if you don't feel good about it, don't charge a fee. But here's what I know. If it doesn't cost anything, well, it kind of diminishes the perception of value. $75, I think, is the right number. Yes, sir.
May I
Go
ask a
ahead.
question?
Yes, you certainly may.
So, hi, Joe Apostle from Toronto.
Yes, sir. It's good to see you, sir.
Question.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you, thank you. So, in terms of having stripes, I want to understand sort of the mechanisms. Like, so I understand we're looking at attendance based, where you recognize them and acknowledge them, and basically reward the behaviors that you want them to do, which is continuing to show up for class.
Yes.
So, and you mentioned that you have that discussion with them earlier on during enrollment about how the testing fees work and so on and so forth. Now, does in organizations that you've been involved with, or different schools, is it that at every stripe, that because you mentioned a certain cost to a fee to it, right? The $75. Is that when they change belts, or is that when they look at getting a stripe that things that they get charged for?
Okay, the $75 certification fee is for the belt rank being awarded. Stripes,
Got it.
the money doesn't change hands. And
Okay.
again, we can take this offline, of course, but just decide what regiment do you want to put in play to get something repeated. At a minimum, we want all our students to show up twice a week. If they show up twice a week, we have a relationship. But if they pick
Got
and
it.
choose, they show up, and the only time they pick up the pace with attendance is when they have that deadline to get ready. It's a disaster. It's a
They cram
disaster.
things and all that stuff at that point in time, right? Like if the belt testing is after so many months, and they think, the testing is coming up next month, then they kind of start showing up and cramming for it.
Well,
So
that's been my experience prior to this. Yes.
yeah. So in addition to that, so I understand the concept of their 300 hours, let's say 30 classes per belt, 10 belts, 300 hours. We get, I get that. Now, if a person was to go through that process, I mean, I understand that we're recognizing the behavior of attendance. Now, typically in a traditional thing, like, you go through, okay, this belt level, you're supposed to have a level of proficiency in doing X, Y, and Z. Is it only then that at the black belt testing that we really put the whole piece together from A to Z of what they've learned to do the quality control? I mean, I know there's we have our regular lessons and everything, but I guess what I'm trying to marry in my head, activity based rewarding versus actual competency based rewarding.
Okay.
Is there a difference, and so on?
I know where you're going with this question, and I struggled with that initially too, because I was under the delusion that black belt equaled instructor. All right, go with me on this. Just because a student earns a black belt doesn't mean that they're a credible representative of your membership and become a teacher. Is that a true or false question for you?
That is a true statement, sir.
So separate the two. So I want you to realize that a black belt is one who full on, full out participates and actualize whatever potential they have. An instructor is required for knowledge of content. Now, if you recognize a student has the makings of an instructor, well, we need to put him in a different type of training. So imagine, if you will, there are two tracks to black belt. No, let me give you a better example. My daughter was a soccer player. Well, she still is. And in soccer, or in a lot of sports, I think basketball is another example, where they have two types of training tracks for the young athlete. They have the rec track and they have the comp track. Rec stands for recreational. They're there to learn the fundamental skills and have fun. Competition is they're there to learn how to score and win. They're two different tracks, but if you take a step back and let's look at the example of basketball. There are only 5 fundamental skills required in basketball. You got to help me out, Mr. Pesky. I'm not a ball player. So what are the 5 fundamentals? Now, don't say dodge, ditch, and all that. But what are they?
And dribble, pass, shoot, rebound, right? You
There's a
got
couple more, right?
you got to learn your basics.
So whether you're on the recreational track or the competitive track, the rules are the same, but the execution of competition is different. That's the way we look at it. You know, not every student has the makings of an instructor, but I think every person has the makings to become a black belt. Now, you said something that I caught one word. You said demonstrate their proficiency. Well, that too can be a bit of a restrictor. You know, I came from an organization, some of you might be familiar with the ATA, enormous. There was a time they had over 300,000 students in their organization. You know, they also had divisions where kids are in wheelchairs. They had divisions of kids with special needs, but that they weren't held back. Whatever potential they had, their job was to actualize that through the promotion of showing up for class and giving your best. So in your mind's eye, maybe make that separation. There are 2 tracks to black belt and beyond. There's a track where I am an enthusiastic martial artist, and there's a track that I want to become a professional instructor. If you maintain that separation, it's going to be easier for you to not only embrace what we're sharing with you, but perhaps even create a higher level, higher tier training to get instructors ready. At the color belt level in Jacksonville, we have a program called Coach, and Coach is the additional level of training where people learn how not only more about the martial art in the system, but learn how to help teach. But not everybody gets to help teach. They have to qualify for that membership. And I know for a lot of us, this is a brand new idea and it seems kind of completely divorced from what we've done, but you got to ask the question, if I keep doing even more of what I've always done, will things get better? Well, we tried that. And what I want you to realize is that our goal is martial arts isn't to develop killer athletes. Our goal is to develop better people. Now, including better people is better health and fitness and perhaps increase their longevity. But for the most part, we're not trying to create killers. We're trying to develop people who are secure, high level self-esteem, comfortable, confident, willing to try new things, always do their best. And that's the goal of our membership. Okay, I see here, is your promotion based on 50? No, it's based on 30 classes. 30 classes are required to go from one belt color to the next. Then once you're at the black belt level, there is a certification regimen.
Another question was, when you promote class, how do you manage testing fees? We kind of addressed that already, but
Yeah.
it's always at the second stripe because we want to give ourselves, we used to do it at stripe 3, but then we found if things didn't get ordered, we do weekly equipment orders. And if we didn't order it, if it got missed, if there was any kind of hiccup, then they get to their class and we don't have the belt. And we thought, I don't ever want to be in that situation again. So very early on, we thought, well, instead of waiting till the 3rd stripe, like we used to do when we did day and date, let's just do it the 2nd stripe. And so that just became our procedure. When a student earns their 2nd stripe, we will process the rank certification to ensure their belt is always here when they're ready to earn it.
Yeah. And get that conversation out of the way.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is chase somebody down for a certification or a testing fee. It's too low level.
Yeah. And the conversation is so simple. As you know, we always try to help families save money. And the best savings for this rank certification is to prepay all of them. Saves you 20%. Oh, I can't do it. Well, let's do half now, half later. No, I can't do it. Well, what most people do is a monthly regimen where you save 10% by just paying half each month. We draft it on the 15th. Easy. If they said, well, no, I just want to pay it as I go. Okay. Well, in that case, we'll draft the certification fee every time your student earns their second stripe. Perfect. See when you come to class next. We never have to talk to them about it again. We've got permission to just run the card.
You know, a lot of us think our testing is working because we get compliments and our families tell us how great it was and how wonderful the kid is. But sometimes we don't look at the numbers. Here's the math. Whatever your active count is, multiply that times the number of times you want a student to change rank each year. So let's say I have 100 active students, and my goal is to test students every, I don't know, let's give it every 3 months, every 12 weeks. Well, if you do that, how many tests over the course of a year do I want them to change rank? Well, the answer is 4. So that means last year I should have collected 400 certification fees. 400 times people should have changed rank. Go back and look at the numbers. I guarantee you'll be disappointed. You'll realize that in most cases, only half the number of people you thought should have or would have graduated actually went from one rank to the next. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the kiss of death. In the absence of progress, people drop out. And as far as recognizing progress, it's real simple. Tell them. Tell them. Tell them what's required. Listen, if you get a student to show up 300 times inside of 2 years, you have yourself an athlete. And that's the direction that we went. And Master Clark has further defined this. And as a result of it, man, his retention is unlike most studios around the country. He keeps his people because everybody, all the students, all the families involved know exactly what's expected and how to participate. And we reward what we want repeated. And that's for a student to be dedicated and to show up for his appointed class. Was there another question that came in, Master Brisket? And skip over.
We have another question here from Dave Henson.
Yep.
Asking about, since you're promoting in class, what about an end of the year banquet for everyone, especially for the black belts that tested that year?
Yeah, throw a Christmas party and then recognize them at the Christmas party. Yeah, listen, I'm in the group training business. If you can pull a group together, do it. But this idea that I got to put on additional dog and pony show is a great idea. But the challenge is going to be as you grow and hit the numbers of membership you hope for, it's very, very difficult to do that. But whatever you choose is okay with me. So if you do want to have a gala event in the year, I'm okay with that. But make sure that it is a gala event and everybody shows up. And to promote everyone showing up, you got to keep them around. And the way you keep people around is you reward what you want repeated, and that's to show up for class and give their best. There's one more thing I want to add. Somebody asked me recently, well, what happens if you got that goofy kid? Well, there's no better leverage than to have this conversation. Timothy, I'm glad you're here today. I appreciate your mother bringing you to class. However, based on your performance halfway through, young man, I don't think I can give you a full class credit. You need to give us your best. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's the way you can keep these younger kids on task. This idea that I'm simply allowing people to show up, stamp the clock, and walk out, that's not what this is all about. It's about having a class that's planned out, that's high energy, that's enthusiastic, where everyone's doing the same thing the same way at the same time under the same instructor. It's a real big impact. Well, we kind of dove deep into that topic. Any other questions about the certification?
Well, our time is just about up. Roman, would you drop the link in there for anyone that wants to schedule? Oh, look at that.
Yeah, I just dropped a link for everyone in the chat there for if you want to schedule a one-on-one call, we can dive deeper into applying these strategies to your school. And if it makes sense to work together, we do have a program for that. It's fairly affordable. And so take the call. It's free to take the call. You'll come away with 2 or 3 things you can put in your academy the next day or right after the call, and then just enjoy the group.
Yes.
And sometimes when you hear these new ideas, you can't help but push back because, we're creatures of habit. But the truth is, some of the most embraced ideas right now were pushed back on a few years back. I was there when the concept of Black Belt Club was invented. I was literally in the same room with the gentleman that said, you know what we ought to do? We ought to sell a membership that will give them a black belt. This way back in the 80s. And half the industry said, you can't do that. You can't guarantee rank. Well, now it's almost ridiculous not to think that we're not going to tie our students into some type of dedicated commitment that's reflected in their membership. So when you hear these new ideas, just try them on. But keep in mind, we invite you to put these ideas in play because we know they work. And one of the things that I can say on this call is that we're never going to recommend something that we made up last night over a couple of Heineken. What we tell you is actually what's working. So I need 3 takeaways, and then we'll tap out. So, Master Serrano, any takeaways, or have you heard this before? Yeah, you're muted, sir.
So no, I like the approach because we've been struggling with the graduations. We do them 3 times a year. And yeah, it's a strain. And I know everyone says they like them, but at the same time, I know they'd be happy not to have them, staff included.
Well, the students that show up like them.
Yeah. Yeah. So we actually talked about doing promotions in class, but you solved the idea of how to collect graduation fees that way, and still tie that in and then present it in a way that makes it where people realize they're working towards it and they're getting promoted when they're ready. So I think you just gave me the final pieces that I need to put that together.
Yeah. A lot of us, I think some of the ideas that we've embraced in martial arts, we got from different industries. Like, for example, a real big business is the business of dance studios. Dance studios make their real money in recitals. If you've ever put your daughter or son in dance, you're going to realize that the tuition for the dance lessons was the easy part. The hard part is the costumes for the recital.
Costumes.
Yep. So we copied that, not realizing that these dance studios made real money selling these outfits. I mean, I know they bought the outfit for $20 from China. They just sold it to me for $240. So I think sometimes we look over the fence at another industry that we think is similar. We copy without firmly understanding what's in play. But the truth is, if you want immediate impact, people have to feel a sense of accomplishment after each time they work out. 1 more class down. I'm 5 more away from my stripe. 2 more classes away from my new belt. Creating that sense of anticipation is the key to retention. But thank you for sharing that. I need 2 more takeaways and we'll go.
We got 2 more questions that got thrown in at the end.
Goodness.
Can you quickly repeat the 5 levels from the beginning of the call of our lead numbers that we should review? The February.
Okay, number 1, the most important is level 1. Level 1 is the lead generation. How many leads did I generate? Level 2 is, did I turn these leads into appointments? Level 3 is, do they show and go? Do they enter do they enroll in my entry-level membership? Level 4 is, from that entry-level membership, are they now committed to a program that would take them to black belt and beyond? And level 5 for this conversation, how many memberships did I augment, did I increase to include the entire family? And if you start measuring those numbers, you're going to realize where you might be dragging your feet and where you may have to pick up the pace. There's a very simple daily accounting report. Could we just drop in the chat for these guys? Does anybody have it handy?
Let me see. While I find it, the last question is, how do you position the belt testing fees when there's no special type of event to promote it?
Well, I just tell them, any internationally recognized martial art program, their ranks are certified by the Grand Master. And with any certification, there is a fee. Our fees are $75. When your student is halfway to his first rank, we'll sit down, review the schedule, and decide what's best. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something else too. And again, this is meant to help, not hurt. A lot of us think we got to justify the money. No, listen, I want you to make as much money as a doctor or a lawyer or some other white collar professional. But to do that, we have to provide the perception of value in everything we offer. And the shortcut providing value is put a price tag on it. And the way you can charge for certification fees is per rank, or you could discount all of them, or perhaps include it in an up-level membership. That's what we do in Jacksonville. Any tuition north of $299, your certification fees are taken care of for you.
And there's also the thing to think about is, do they enjoy going up and getting in front of the audience to perform, or do they enjoy being handed their belt? So we take the part that they are scared to death of in the early stages of their training and get rid of it and keep the part that they love getting, and that is the recognition and reward in front of their peers. Parents have their cameras out, their phones out. Oftentimes after class, we'll bring the kid over with the mom. So she's got her arm around him. She's got a big beaming smile. The kid's beaming. He's holding up his new belt. We take a picture. We send it to her. We drop it in the VIP group to share with other families. Hey, look, here's the proof. So yeah, it's not the kick in their butt that they love. It's the reward of putting in the work. And for us, putting in the work is get your butt to class 300 times, because we teach the lessons. So if you teach a student 100 times, they're probably going to look about like a green belt. And if I teach a student 100 times, they're probably going to look about like a green belt. The difference is the way we do it, we'll have 2 or 3 times more than you, simply because we remove the bottlenecks that filter out the ones that aren't quite strong enough yet, because we know our goal is not to have the best looking yellow belts on the planet. Our goal is to get more people to black belt, because I've been amazed at how much people improve over the course of 3, 4, and 5 years compared to what I thought they were going to do during the first few weeks. I mean, I've had some students that this has actually opened up my eyes to a lot of stuff too, because I've had some students that I thought would never be good that turned out to be amazing, because we kept encouraging them to keep showing up, keep showing up. And guess what? 3, 4, 500 lessons later, they're actually really good. And I would have weeded them out years ago.
I want to add one more thing. Just last week, I was solicited by a kickboxing program, and the gentleman just started the call, just guns blazing. If you want more adults, here's what you have to offer. And it was a fitness program for adults. And I thought, well, maybe you should have asked, do we have problems getting adults first? The number one reason why you don't have a large adult market is that most of your membership are kids, and of course, parents are attached, but you make it so difficult for the parent to feel comfortable starting, they never begin. If you leverage this idea of attendance-based rank certification, your parents will participate. In our studios in Sacramento, we have more adults than children. In Jacksonville, Florida, it's headed in that direction. And the reason why is most adults would like to participate. Most adults would like to get fit, would like to feel more comfortable, would like to be more confident in their physical abilities. But the certification, the traditional way of testing, has kept a lot of them from starting, because you've heard it 100 times. How many times have you spoke to a parent about getting started? They go, oh, no, it's not for me. I can never remember all that stuff. I could never get in front of people and do all those moves. So remove it. But don't you worry. You get someone to train with you 300 lessons, regardless of the time span, you're going to end up creating some real martial artists. And that's the goal of our business. Our goal of our business isn't just to work people out. Our goal of our business is to help people accomplish the prestigious rank of black belt and beyond.
Perfect.
Well, there you go.
All right, that's
thank you,
all.
everyone.
I dropped the link for the daily action plan in the chat there. It's in the Warrior Success System school group and has a video that goes along with it, kind of walks you through it. So if you click that link, it'll take you there. And then there's also the link for the onboarding call for if you want more personalized help with any of these strategies.
Excellent. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing those of you that are going to train with us tomorrow. In the meanwhile, hey, focus on the numbers. Level 1 activity. Convert them to appointments that show and go. There you have it. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye for now.
See you all next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. See you next week.
All right.